Hi there, good to be back once again, and here we are at lesson 7. I hope you've enjoyed the song we learnt last week, Wild Thing. I got on okay with the chord changes. As I keep emphasising over the weeks, take it nice and slow to begin with. Get those rhythm and chord changes moving as I've shown you in the lesson, and work alongside the track as much as you can. You know, listening to the songs just as important as learning to play, because if you don't and you try and trust your memory, that's when little mistakes can occur and you think you're playing it right, and then when you play along with the track or get to the point of playing along with the track, some things aren't quite right. And I'm speaking from experience in that respect, because that happened to me when I was learning. So listening to the track as well as, you know, learning to play it is just as important to get used to the arrangement. Well, in today's lesson then, we're going to be adding to the scales that we learned a couple of weeks ago. A few new scales in there for you, and I'm going to be working with the metronome again on the scales that we learned previously, and to show you how to play them in time and to work towards that certain tempo along with the metronome. And then in the second half of the lesson, we're going to be looking at putting the new chords that I showed you last week into some new chord sequences, using all the chords that we've accumulated over the weeks, which will stand us in good stead for the new songs that are coming up in the coming weeks. Okay, moving back to the C major scale and the A natural minor scale that we learnt a couple of weeks ago. Hopefully you're nice and familiar with those now. So I'm going to reintroduce the metronome and show you how to keep those in time, because it's really important to not only play in time but build up speed in your scales. So the only limitations at the moment, bearing in mind we're only six weeks into the course, is that your playing's still going to be relatively slow. So we need to increase that speed, and your only limitation at the moment is other things that you can play at the speed that you're at. So we're always looking to try and improve your speed, and we do that again using the metronome. So for this exercise, I'm going to set the metronome, which I'd like you to work towards this speed. I'm setting the metronome at 70 beats per minute. Yeah, that's the required tempo for this exercise. And what you're aiming to do is to place every note of the scale on the click of the metronome, and it's quite tricky. All right, it's not easy. So don't worry if it doesn't sort of click in straight away. It's something to work towards. So I'll just demonstrate. And the A natural minor scale. Okay, so as you could hear then, every note was landing right on the click of that metronome. Now, like I said, it's something to work towards. It's not going to be as sharp and as clinical as that straight away with your scales. It's something to work towards. So don't worry if you start off a little bit out of time, or if you trip up along the scale. Try and keep it going, and then as you practice improves, so your time will improve. And then once you're comfortable at that speed, then we can always speed the metronome up. So I'll just demonstrate that at a slightly quicker pace, and we kind of move the tempo higher into increments of 10. So if we started off at 70 there, then once you're comfortable with that, then by all means move it up to 80. I'll just demonstrate it at 80. The natural minor. So we're always pushing to speed up those scales, because that's the way that you'll improve your playing over time. By all means, start off slower than the 70. 70 is kind of like the benchmark that I'd like you to get to begin with before you start increasing the speed. So by all means, start at a bit of a slower pace. You know, 60 beats per minute is good. Natural minor. So that's also a good way of starting out your practice. If you don't use a metronome and you think, oh, well, what's the point of using a metronome? It's you know, the point of a metronome is simply to keep you in time. If you don't use a metronome, then your scales could be slowing down or speeding up without you realising. If you've no kind of if you've no anchor there to play to, and then when you start playing and improvising and playing solos and riffs, that lack of timing is going to affect your playing long term. So I'd really can't emphasise enough to discipline yourself into using a metronome. Obviously not all the time, every time you practice. You just get to know your scales first of all, but then try and hook them up to the metronome and sharpen up your timing. And then once you're confident with the pentatonic scales, introduce those in with the metronome along with your C major and A minor natural, and then play the whole complement of scales and practice with the metronome as you go. I would also recommend beginning your practice schedule with your scales, and I'll just emphasise that at the end of the lesson as well. So always try and warm up with your scales to begin with and play along with the metronome. Okay, on to the chord section now of this lesson. And like I said, I'm going to give you a couple of new chord sequences to incorporate the C and G chords that we learned last week, along with the other major and minor chords that we've put together over the previous weeks. And this is going to demonstrate a little bit more about chord families. So as I explained with the Wild Thing, the A major, D and E major chords, they belong to a certain chord family in the key of A being the starting and finishing chord and the other two chords being related to the A. These next two chord sequences are going to be in the key of G and the key of C. So the first one I'm going to do is in the key of G, meaning I'm going to start on a G, finishing on a G, and all the other chords are related to G. So that's one chord family. The other sequence we're going to be doing is in the key of C, beginning on C and ending on C, and the other chords again relative to C major. So here we go, starting with the G major set of chords. So we're starting on a G. I'll play it through for you at normal speed, and I'm going to be using the same strumming pattern that we used for the minor chords. So mixing up the down strums and then the up and down strums together, same pattern, and then I'm going to be hopefully encouraging you to improvise your own strumming patterns as we go. But here we go. Okay, so I'll just walk you nice and slowly through that sequence. So we're starting on a G to E minor. So that change, I'm just tucking my third finger under my second, leaving my second finger where it is from the G. To E minor, to A minor, I'm just dropping my second and third onto the higher strings there and adding my first finger on to the second string to A minor, and then to D major, back to G. Now Now the G to C, I'm just dropping my second and third fingers onto the fifth and fourth strings respectively, and adding my second finger on, my first finger onto the second string. C. C to A minor, leaving my first and second fingers where they are, tucking my third finger underneath there to the third string to A minor. To D major once again. And then finishing back on G. Just to talk about strumming, G is obviously all 6 strings. E minor is all 6 strings. A minor, 5 strings, and remember D, only 4. G again. C, 5 strings only. Don't want that bottom string on the C. A minor once again, 5 strings, and then D, 4. Okay, that's a G major chord sequence. Onto the C major now. Okay, once again, nice and slowly. C major to A minor, first change. Taking my third finger underneath there. To the tricky D minor. Again, 4 strings only on the D minor. G major. Back to C major. A minor, leaving my second fingers where they are. To E minor, just lifting my second and third onto the fifth and fourth strings. To G major, leaving my second finger where it is, adding my third finger up onto the 6th string and adding my little finger on the first string. Finishing back on C. Okay, so what I'd like you to do when you're comfortable with those chord sequences and changes is to experiment with the strumming patterns and improvise your own strumming patterns. Okay, so I'll just demonstrate, and then, like I say, feel free to experiment with your own, and then I'll just demonstrate with the metronome as well to show you how it all works. So here we go. C major, Okay, so any format of strumming is going to work so long as you're playing it actually in time and counting the bars correctly. So just to emphasise that point, I'll once again use the trusty old metronome. Again, setting it nice and steady, 60 beats per minute. And like I say, I can just make up any strumming pattern as long as it fits. Down strums on the beat, up strums on the off beat. Here we go. major sequence. And please feel free to use any tempo that you set the metronome to, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, so your practice schedule for this week is going to be beginning with your scales, your full complement of scales, working through them, and then giving it a bash with the metronome and have a couple of goes. Don't drive yourself mad. You know, if it's not working, give it a go and then come back to it tomorrow or on your next practice session, and you'll find it'll gradually improve. Then work through the new chord sequences that we've covered today. Practice your strumming and your timing, and then go on to the while thing. Keep practicing that, keep getting that up to speed, and then by all means go over some of the old stuff that we've done, the E ride, for example, and some of the old chord sequences, just to keep your practice varied. That's the key, nice and varied, and you'll find that everything will improve. And I look forward to seeing you once again next week.